This is Up Close, SABC News weekday program that profiles men and women making waves in their industries, African icon, rising stars, idols and veterans. If they're in the news, then you can catch their story right here. I'm Tshepang Motsekuoa. Stay tuned for the next half hour as we talk to entrepreneur and founder and designer for Jenna Clifford Designs. Jenna Clifford Designs was established back in 1992 and has grown to become a brand of style and luxury. The initial focus was exclusively on jewelry design, but today the brand has grown to include innovative brands such as the Jenna Clifford Fine Jewellery, Renaissance Jewellery, and Jenna Clifford Homeware, as well as Jenna Clifford Trophies. So even 2 decades later, the jewellery is still designed by Jenna Clifford herself. Who is this creative lady and how has she built her empire? Well, we have the privilege to have Jenna in the studio
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Jenna, thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here.
I want to know jewelry. How did that even start? Were you a creative child? Were you in the arts?
You're going to make me laugh a lot. I was not terribly good at school, you know.
Oh, okay, really?
And that means that then I'm right-brained. And in those days, I don't even think they dissected that because it was a long time ago. But I was always good at drawing and colouring and maps. So my school years were not very happy years, I'm afraid, because I always felt that I was dysfunctional, but I found my place later in life, obviously.
So they didn't have art classes and things like that?
I was in private school.
Okay.
And I grew up in Bears Valley and Kensington, so I went to school at JP Prep, which is in Troyville. And in those days, they just bashed down the school, so I was in a prefab. So there wasn't the luxury of art classes quite. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go back to that upbringing. Jenna Clifford, the little girl growing up in Johannesburg. What was that like?
It was quite painful.
Why did you do that?
I think because I was an only child and, as I said, a bit dysfunctional academically, or that's certainly how I felt. But I've come to learn later in life that that was a great advantage, and that's probably why I make a good inspirational teacher for the youth today, and even people that are getting older and think, oh, I'll never make it. Anybody can make it. It's just really finding your place in life and what you're good at and what you're passionate about. But I think in those years, it served for good delayed gratification. And, you know, I think out of joy and all the happy stuff does come wonderment and beauty, but also complacency. And sometimes when things are not as good as they could be, and you add a bit of a deficit, it does breed in you a bit of a drive. And that's really what's needed for anybody that wants to transcend anything in life in whatever faculty you're in, I think.
You see, hindsight, as they say, is a mother of all wisdom, and it's great. But when you were a little child, I mean, who said you were dysfunctional? I mean, somebody must have said these things.
I think
somebody must have given you a tough time.
Yeah, I think largely at school, and my parents were not the brightest cadets either. But my father went on to do very, very well in life. Financially, even from being a plasterer. So the thing is, from a lot of people assume if you this or that, you grew up there or there. Well, wrong. But I'm very proud of what I have gone through and surviving it. That, as I said, that's good inspiration.
Yeah, I think it's nice that you say that your dad is a plasterer, because already I'm connecting, you know, the artistic side. But so your parents never made you. It's an art, you know, Jen.
It probably is to get a straight wall. You're quite right. But in those days, it was kind of trades were frowned upon. Today, a trade is not frowned upon because you can be a plumber or electrician and actually earn what a doctor earns if you're an entrepreneur. So luckily, things have changed, you know, and we're not as restrictive because we've moved out of this patriarchal age now into a more balanced age, which I'm quite pleased about as well.
So you grew up and your parents were very supportive of you. They didn't have, you know, any issues about you performing academically?
Well, they weren't great academics themselves. So my father got me into sport very quickly. I became a swimmer at the age of 7.
Nice.
And I think for the first 6 months, they probably swam me round about an hour and a bit a day. And then after that, it was straight to 4 hours. So
Sure.
it was a case of having a very strong mentor to say, look, we don't have a lot, but if you work hard, you're going to be a winner.
Yes,
So it was really my father with a lot of force.
Okay.
I
And so
didn't
were
like
you
him
were
at
you
the
good?
time.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. 4
No, I
hours of
didn't.
swimming a day. No.
Yeah.
Were you a good swimmer? Did you
Yeah,
perform very well
I
at
was
school?
a fairly good swimmer.
Okay.
I actually got chosen for the national side.
Nice.
And then got glandular fever. So after all of those years, I didn't even get Springbok colours. But I mean, I
Sure.
was a fair swimmer.
So you were a great swimmer, and
well,
I mean,
that
that's
served me actually
I'm
now
sure
in my
it
career
did.
because just like anything, whether you've got 5 degrees or no degrees,
Yeah.
to be excellent does take, as Maxwell says, 10,000 hours. And it is about driving that passion and keeping that absolute focus in this frenetic world.
So then you were very disciplined then from a very young age then to be
I
able
was
to
forced
do
to
that.
be
Yeah, to
disciplined.
become a
And being an
disciplined
only
person.
child, there weren't siblings to actually say, oh, well, so-and-so's doing this.
Yes.
You know, it stops on oneness.
Yeah,
So literally, there were beady eyes on me always.
Yeah. But I mean, children are usually very popular at school. So I'll take it
Oh, well, that
you
was
were-
the good
you were
thing,
popular.
that in my high school years, I think I won Victrix Lidorum in Standard 6 and Standard 7, which was
Wow.
really unusual in those days because
Yes.
you were normally in matric.
Yeah.
So I could shine in one aspect, but they always reminded me that I wasn't the cleverest on the block. But that's why it came as a bit of a smile amusement for my school's 50th anniversary. They called the dance of the school to do the head address, which I did smile at, but I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what happens? You focus on swimming. Did you want to follow that as a professional career beyond school?
I could never see myself working in the rigidity of a straight workforce. So my father was, he thought he was wonderful getting me a job in Barclays Bank as a teller. And that certainly wasn't going down in those years. So swimming became an income for me because as a good swimmer, especially if you're an incredible teacher,
Yes.
and I was brought up to make a vase out of a Coke can. You know, money was something you really looked after if you didn't have it. And literally I was driving a fairly good little income for a youngster that afforded me to obviously go into my trade and, you know, provide, because in the trade your parking bill is what you get paid for the month. So there were those challenges too.
Yeah.
But
Jenna,
it's been a long and winding road, but
I want to
good
talk
one.
a little bit more about that after the break, Jenna. We're going to continue to get up close with Jenna Clifford. Do you have any suggestions or comments that you'd like to share about the show? Our email address is upclose@sabc.co.za. Twitter handle is @upclosesabc. We'll see you just now. Thank you for staying with us as we get up close with Jenna Clifford. Jenna, let's continue chatting. I mean, I want to know, I see your childhood as great. I mean, you're a great swimmer. I mean, I know from school is, you know, the kids who play sports are the most popular. And then you were able to start making a living very early, doing what you were very good at. Am I wrong?
You can airbrush anything. There were good points and bad points.
Yeah.
I think swimming also provides, it's a singular sport, just remember that. So as much as you think it's fun, that's what I thought. That's why when my father said, do you want to play golf? Do you want to have a tennis racket or do you want to swim? You know, he gave me the choice. Swimming to me sounded the most fun, but any sport is a dedication. And once you're hitting the hours, you might still love it, but it isn't easy work. It is a dedication. It's getting up incredibly early in the morning, 2 hours before school, 2 hours after school, and then still, you know, fitting in the rest of your life. But I think it kept me out of mischief, really.
Yeah. I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
You know, in my days, I'm sure you could still get up to mischief. Yeah, but I was relatively straight-laced.
Yeah. And then let's move on to the next week. So when does it start happening? The, you know, designing of jewelry. So you say you could draw,
Yeah,
but
I
you didn't have
actually
an art
started at
class.
school playing with my father's tickies and unfortunately taking them. It didn't make me
Okay.
too popular. He used to collect tickies in those days.
Okay.
So I was always very busy, whether I was painting in my little spare time and on holidays,
Okay.
apart from still exercising. But I always had that very creative flair, and deep in me is my father's drive to transcend our circumstances. So kind of the wolf was always at the door, that I wanted to be recognized at achieving something that possibly was non-academic. So there was always that drive in me to want to transcend and want to give my family a completely different life.
Yes.
You know, we, in
And
my day,
you had the
remember
right
we
role
didn't have
model.
TVs. TVs only started in 76. But, you know, TV has educated people as to the plethora of what you can choose in life. You know, you get exposed, and exposure is great. So I too had dreams, and ostensibly in the jewelry industry, you might, if you work incredibly hard, make a living, but you won't make anything else because it's a tough industry.
Yes.
So probably swimming prepared me for my industry very, very well. Yeah, you also deal with people, remember that.
The one thing that I was going to say is that you had a role model in a way, that you had seen your father take something that
From
was
nothing.
so simple,
Absolutely.
and turn it into a business and make a success of it. So now tell me, why jewelry? I want to know that, because you could have painted, you could have made anything else.
My father was a great, and is still, even though my father's nearly 80, a great admirer of the Jewish bloodline because of their excellence of achievement in any field of endeavor, whether it's Hollywood or a doctor or a specialist or go anywhere.
And this is a reality,
And
whether
it is
people
a
want to accept
reality.
it or not.
And my father definitely put me in a Jewish swimming school as well.
Okay.
And from once I got exposed, I saw beautiful cars, beautiful homes, things we didn't have. So that definitely opened the mind as well to what you could achieve if you followed that matrix.
So you were attracted to luxury.
Yes,
to,
and
to
remember
style,
the Jewish bloodline love portable assets. And this is the business of portable assets. So I really got, as the Jewish Rambam say, a full all-round as to how to become successful. And that's something I still teach today.
How did you start with jewelry? I still say
my
you could have gone to cars.
Yeah, my uncle was actually a diamond cutter, and that was also a trade.
Okay.
And in our industry, it's gone through very severe bumps through a number of years. Certainly, the 35 years I've been in the industry. And we've got very limited cutters. So you had to get out the industry, but that was my first notion.
Okay.
And obviously he knew a few people within the profession that even though jewelry manufacturing is diverse from diamond cutting, he bothered to do the odd intro.
Okay.
And then I got married too young. And my clever husband wanted to make gold racing pendants because he was he was a horse fanatic.
Okay.
So that also gave me an intro. So life's got roadmaps, and sometimes if you open your eyes, you can start seeing the beacons. So that's something I also encourage. You know, sit back and look a little bit.
The very first design.
That I made for myself was actually a pear-shaped pearl ring.
Okay.
And it wasn't very good. It takes years to make beautiful jewelry. I must just tell you, it's a dedication in itself.
Yeah.
But
So how do you
design.
move from that one little ring to saying, okay, I'm going to actually go and establish my own business under my own name?
Well, as I said, roll on year after year. I've always mainly, other than small patches in my life when I've birthed children. So I had them 7 years apart because you've got to work. And the bottom line is fitting in everything. You've got to be at it 6 to 7 days a week. Even on Sundays, I basically worked 5 hours.
But did you begin working for yourself, Jenna, or did you work for a jeweler?
I started in a factory. I started in a factory, which was the best possible place to be, because literally the beginning starts over there. So even though a factory doesn't do design work, the design is already finished and you're going into production. That taught me an incredible lot.
What was your job at the factory?
It was a Girl Friday, doing everything from tea, answering the phones, literally weighing the filings, and in the latter sector, running the back end of the factory. But I was never a very good goldsmith, something I didn't want to do. I realized within 5 years, I definitely wanted to be a designer.
Okay.
So
for 5 years you worked at the factory.
A little bit more than that, yeah.
Yeah. And then who did you take your designs to and say,
Well,
look, this is what I think I can do? And
you know, in the days that we're talking about, women really didn't have their own businesses. You know,
Yes,
women were
exactly.
minors in the eyes of the law.
Exactly.
So the boys' club, I've always had a bit of a mouth on me. Do you understand? So I wasn't a very popular lady with the boys' club.
Okay.
So I literally had to start on my own, and that's what I really did. First, with the factory, I became a partner in that factory.
Wow.
And albeit
From a Girl Friday to
from a Girl Friday
Wow.
over a couple of years, and that also serves for all the youngsters out there today. It doesn't matter whether you've got a degree, you haven't got a degree. If you've got a mentor, you've got to shadow them and work the hours they work. Not say, oh, well, I start at 8 and I finish at 5. If they start at 7 and they finish at 9, those are the times you've got to be there. And that's probably how that happened, because I worked just as hard as the partners did. So that did give me a very good window as well. And I suppose the swimming helped with the dedication. But I mean, I'm very passionate about what I do. And that's what I can also encourage people about, because if you don't love what you're doing, you've got to be doing it 14 plus hours a day, you're not going to get there.
And you're not going to be a very
so you've got to choose
person.
what you like quite well.
Okay, let's take another break and then we'll continue chatting to Jenna Clifford. Do you have any suggestions or comments that you'd like to share with us about the show? Email them at upclose@sabc.co.za. Twitter handle is at upclosesabc. Do stay with SABC News. We'll see you just now. Thank you for staying with us as we wrap up our conversation with Jenna Clifford. It goes quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, sure.
Jenna, I want to talk about one of the things that you were able to do is to turn your brand into a luxury brand. Your marketing strategy. You have a whole lot of South Africa's celebrities, personalities, attached to your brand. How do you do that?
I was also lucky. I got some of my icons in the world that I thought I would never, ever meet.
Yeah.
That come and shop with me, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful. Those are the silent gifts we get, all of us, when we get to the top of our passion, because that's what it is. But it wasn't a direct strategy, by the way.
Okay.
I think from growing up where I grew up, I always loved beauty.
Okay.
And I think if you surround yourself with that and work towards it and only make that, other people at the top of their professions only want to deal with people that are at that cutting edge and not commercial and not making things in China and India and killing our jobs and just running straight commerce.
So are you telling me that you didn't, we're looking at a few pictures there of your different clients. So you did not seek the clients. They actually came to you and started saying, you know what, we want to be attached.
Well, funny enough, sport was first, which is quite amazing, because rugby
so
started in the early 90s for me.
Okay.
And I knew what a rugby ball was, and I knew what the odd good-looking guy was, but I certainly didn't know what the game was.
Okay.
And then followed in a few other sports and some quite famous golf trophies, etc., etc. So
that's where the trophy line started.
Absolutely, yes.
So then the sportsmen then were attracted to your work, and then of course their spouses.
Then they got engaged to beautiful people. You see,
and they're like, Jenna, could you design something? Just wow. So that's how that started. It was not a deliberate marketing strategy.
No, it definitely wasn't. But it was by design mentally, I think, with one or two icons, because I think if one thinks about anything long enough, it becomes. That's why I also try and teach everyone, try and stay away from the negative thinking. It only brings more of that, you know?
Yeah. Jenna, the challenges that you have faced, I mean, in the industry itself.
Well, as an industry,
and
being a female,
go there, exactly.
being a female was just don't even walk in, because women are allowed to be, in those years, trade jewellery. They were allowed to be a shop hand, but definitely really nothing behind that, except if you were born into a jewellery family. That was kind of different, and I wasn't really.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also wasn't Jewish, and it was really a Jewish industry. Today, it's not so much a Jewish industry. Still globally it is. Where you see excellence, that's where you'll see it. But there are a few more women in the trade now, I'm glad to say. And it always takes one or two to break through, to make it acceptable for the rest of us to go through. So
and then the
good.
other thing about being a woman and a successful entrepreneur is balancing family life. How does Jenna, because you've got a lovely family, how did you balance that?
I'm very lucky. I have a long-term partner, husband, and he's a fabulous, fabulous father.
Wow.
And I think without that, I couldn't have worked the hours and given the dedication and all the anguishes, etc., because that's been a big support, even if I felt I haven't been supported. Because, you know, strong women sometimes can even annoy the nicest of men.
But that's usually the thing. Most of the women who sit in that chair, the conversation starts to go towards, you know...
the divorce.
Exactly,
Well,
that they cannot
happened to me
hold
twice,
on
I must
to the
just tell
relationships.
you, both my first and my second husband ran for the hills. One with my best friend and one with the secretary. But that was also possibly indicative of working incredibly hard and being too strong to stand for what you believe in. But luckily today, you know, sanity is prevailing. And like Oprah Winfrey, one of my absolute idols, if you look at her man, he doesn't put himself down because she's so great, and that's why that union has lasted. And it's things like that that are giving
very
men
difficult
the
to
notion.
South because we're still very traditional in
Well,
South Africa.
especially in South Africa, if you go and look at all the cultural groups, of which there are many, it's not acceptable to be a strong woman that's independent, educated, and earning, let alone have the cheek of being a mother. So
you know, you should choose. It's like, Jenna, then you don't have the right to be a mom,
But you know what? As Tina Turner sang, I want to make $1 million, I want a husband and some children. That became my mentoring.
Wow.
And if you look behind those great women, most were abused too. So there's light at the tunnel, and at a coalface, you can only become a diamond if you stick hard enough, long enough, with the desired effect. And that is ultimately what it's about, really. Take the pain for the gain.
What's next for Jenna?
I'm in quite a good space now. I want to try and help the country a little bit more, seeing that I helped it a little bit getting women into government by having the odd... not argument, but good debate, you know, with a president or two. I'd like to continue that. I'd like to continue my work in enlightening men now to just how wonderful women are and what they are capable, and that you can't judge them as useless because very few women have actually had long-term education.
And that it doesn't interfere with your masculinity.
Absolutely not. And we don't want to grow what they have. We have our own little things. We want to be what we want to be, and a bird always flies with two wings, and so does a plane. So does a chopper too. So let's stop amputating the female and join forces and become great in this country. I love this country. I'm passionate about it.
Jenna Clifford, thank you so much for making the time to chat to us.
And thank you so much for having me.
And that's how we're going to wrap up today's edition of Up Close. I'm sure many of the young girls out there are inspired. We'd greatly appreciate any suggestions and comments that you have about our show. Catch us same time weekdays on SABC News, DSTV channel 404. And then some of our favorite episodes, we put them up on youtube.com/SABC News. You know our Twitter handle at UpClose SABC, and mine at Tshepang Motsekuoa. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. you.